Hey everybody, welcome back. And to all our newcomers, welcome. Thank you so much for checking us out. We have a whole bunch of little beauties on the forest floor for you today. So come for a walk with us, see what we can see. Now look at these little buttes. Well, these are the Waxy Caps. This is the Hygrocebi genus. But the question is it Hygrocebi chlorophanna? Is it Hygrocebi flavescens? Is it Hygrocebi glutinipes? Is it Hygrocebi sericea? Okay, well there's a few different things. Now the glutinipes has a very, very slimy cap, and it's also translucent, so you can kind of see through the cap quite a bit. And so we're going to knock that one off. Now the sericea has a really, really dry cap and decurrent kind of gills, which the other ones are kind of semi-decurrent, but not really. Now we've also got the last couple there. We've got flavescens, and we've also got the chlorophanna. Now the flavescens apparently has a dry cap, so when you run your finger on it, it feels like you know when you just done your dishes and your plate is all nice and clean, and you run your finger along it and you can feel it kind of grab. Whereas the chlorophanna is viscid, so you can actually see, yeah, and it's quite viscid. So, and also the chlorophanna, the stipe is viscid. And this one, let's take a feel, see. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Now the reason why I'm not pulling this guy up is because in some countries, these guys are red listed on the threatened list. So I just want to be careful and not disrupt them. There's only 2 of them here. I haven't seen any others around. I mean, they're just wild. Now, here's the other weird thing is in 2010, the flavescens and the chlorophanna were described as indifferent. They're pretty much the same. So this is either flavescens or it's chlorophanna. Yeah, so they've been red listed in what, Germany, Poland, and Switzerland, I think. So anyways, so a little taxonomic history here. In 1821, we got a Elias Magnus frieze. It sounds kind of like a transformer. Elias Magnus, transform and roll out. Yeah, he threw it in the Agaricus genus because guess what? That's where they all go, right? Because he has gills. So it was a Agaricus chlorophanus. And that lasted for about 50 years until a German mycologist comes along. Oh, Elias was actually Scandinavian. I forgot to mention that, actually, I think. And then along comes Friedrich Wunst, or Wunst. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Anyways, he was a German mycologist, and he threw it into the Hygrocebi genus. So yeah, and that's where it stayed. So there's a little bit of history for you there now. Now a lot of times in the European countries, they like the edges of forests, on the edges of grassy fields and whatnot, and on really, really crappy ones. But on the west coast, they'll grow in the forest like this one, these ones here are. But they'll also grow on the edge of the forest too, like in the grass. Now here's another thing that they've just recently found out, is that these guys are neither saprotropic nor are they mycorrhizal. They found that they have an affiliation to the mosses. And funnily enough, even the ones that I find in the edges of the fields, or the edges of the forests, and in the forest, they've always been in moss, that I can remember anyways. And there's about 150-ish species apparently of them. Yeah, and apparently they're edible, but not really noteworthy. David Aurora actually described them in Mushrooms Demystified, and great book. You got to get that one if you're into mushrooms. Really, really good. So yeah, not a lot of testing on the nutrients or things, but here's the thing is, like I said, 15% is all that they have done on the many tens of thousands of different species. So they got a lot to go. Oh, speaking of which, actually, the WHO, who? Yeah, them. They have seen an uptick in the world, not continents, just all of them, like the entire world, or the populated world, of bacterial infections. And after finding out how many good nutrients and polysaccharides and polyphenols and all the anti-cancerous, anti-biofilm and antimicrobial, they've been finding all this information about them. So they're doing a push on getting extracts from more mushrooms and testing more species. So we've got a lot more information that's going to be coming into our laps at some point in time, hopefully sooner than later. But as soon as I have any more updates on any of the mushrooms that we find, I will always keep you informed. We've got some more hygroscopes here. This is a different species. This one's Hygroscope conica, and they're known to have kind of a dry cap. So, oh yeah, see, so if when you run your finger along it, it's not slippery, it's not viscid. And a slightly viscid, yep, and a slightly viscid stipe. And a slightly viscid stipe. So yeah, these guys, I'm just kneeling down here, and just gonna pull one up. These are also called the blackeners. You can see where it's already blackening right where I touched it, right here to pull it up. I brought one in for a spore print last night, and it went completely black and shriveled. But yeah, so you can see the difference here. So you can see the color of the stipe, and it gets a little darker orangey when you get up closer to the cap. The cap's quite conical, hence conica. And so this is of the Singeri group, and so yeah, there's several of them, but this is yeah, one of their big indicators is you can see how much it's blackened. It's the blackener. And these guys have an affiliation apparently with the grasses. Now whether it's symbiotic or parasitic, they're not quite sure. But yeah, look at that. See, it's completely gone black everywhere I've touched it now. Wow, that's wild. I haven't touched the cap, but because I wanted to try and keep it as pristine as I could. And these guys will turn all black at some point, usually after a bit of a frost or things like that. Well, just like we had an amazing year with the chanterelles and lobsters and mica caps and russulas, and well, the Anoses are doing the same thing. They're going crazy. There's more over there, and a bunch over here too. I'm all in the sunlight. Yeah, hey baby girl. She's all covered in something. I think she's been rolling in poo. Great. All right, so yeah, these are the Anoses of the Geophylla group, and I've got 3 little specimens here that are all very, very similar, but not quite the same. Yeah, so I'm just going to set up my tripod and we'll get organized. So all 3 of these guys like to live in the moss. Now this one here is the Anoses Geophylla lilacina, and this one right here is just, as far as I know, just the Anoses Geophylla. Now this one, as you can see, it's got a different cap. It's not quite, well, it's just as white, but it's not quite umbonate and not sticking up. It's quite rounded, so you can see quite like that. And quite the stipe is quite a bit thicker, quite like the lilacina here. And you can see also that the caps curl under like that when they're young, and as they start to age, they start to flare out a bit. And this one's still attached. That's pretty wild. And I think these ones that are right over here are all the same as this rounded cap one, the Anoses pudica. It's of the whitey-eye group. It's got this spermatic smell, and it's quite strong actually when you take a big whiff of it. But yeah, all 3 of these guys are toxic, so they're all going to give you a bellyache bad and probably dysentery and all that kind of stuff. I don't think there's been any fatalities from these guys, but definitely you want to avoid them. And they say that the lilacina can look like the Lacaria amethystio occidentalis. Yeah, no, I don't think it looks anything like it. But, you know, still, you have to do your due diligence and be careful out there. They're all moss lovers, and they have an ectomycorrhizal relationship with the trees surrounding them. And these all around here are Doug firs. But yeah, I really do like the color of the Lilacina. It's quite beautiful. And they will fade. That color will fade, and they'll look kind of like a grayish color too. So just a little update on how the jumbo Jims are doing here. Look at these guys. They're just dinner plates. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, if you remember, they were barely just buttons, and but still the size of a banana. Crazy. Now they've all flared out and done their thing. Beautiful. Look at this mass of Zorophyllina. Isn't that just... They're all over this old log. Yeah, wow, man. That's amazing. Yeah, they're coming off of this old tree that broke off years ago, and it fell down. Bonk. Here. Yeah, look at how rotted it is. Got a bunch of brackets on the back too. That's cool. Yeah, these guys will vary from kind of a yellow to an orangey brown, you know. So Zorophyllina means dry little navel. So you can see they've got these ditto navels. They're just so cute. You want to push them like the Pillsbury Doughboy and get your... Yeah, so weird. But they're also called the fuzzy foot and the golden trumpet. But the question is, which one is it? What species? Because there's a bunch of them. Wow, look at how massed up they are, man. So is it Zorophyllina campanella? Is it Zorophyllina campanelloides? Is it Zorophyllina bruneola? Or is it the Zorophyllina kaufmannii? Now the kaufmannii likes to grow on hardwoods, and this one is a Doug fir. Yeah, there's a bunch of different ones. So, all right, well, first of all, the brunolia, that one, first of all, is normally a more of a brown color. The other thing is they like debarked wood. And these guys are growing on both the barked and the debarked. Not as much in the debarked, but definitely massed up in the barked. So I think we can take bruneola off of that one. Coticinalis, that one actually likes growing on leaf litter. So, you know, it's going to be growing on the needle duff and the twigs and everything that are falling on the ground. They're not big on the logs, whereas these other ones are. So that leaves us now with campanella and campanelloides. And the thing with them, you need a microscope to distinguish between the two, and even then is very difficult. So yeah, there's you gotta do a lot of homework on trying to decipher between the two of those. But are they edible? Well, apparently, but they're really bitter. So, and they're small. So like in Mushrooms Demystified, David Aurora said, yeah, not worth it, plus they're bitter. And so it's just not, won't make a dish worthwhile. And of course there's others that say they eat them all the time, and that's always the way it is. But yeah, also no lab reports on these guys. Let's see, what else do I know about them? Oh, it was named by Cooner and Rene Murray. I think it was 1953, 54, something like that. So here's the underside of one, and you can see that the gills are decurrent, and they're going to turn out to be kind of like a fluted kind of trumpet, like a lot of them will. Now you'll see that also they got these little kind of short little gills that start at the margin and work their way in, and they stop about a quarter of the way through. Now, another thing about the Zorophyllina is they have these kind of cross-like veiny things like between the gills. They're almost kind of connecting them. Bizarre. And they also have these wiry little stipes, but you can see how decurrent they are. And that'll become fluted. These little belly buttons will just become a flower vase, basically. But yeah, they're just chowing down on this log. Holy, yeah, that's pretty neat. I just love them. And you'll see them on stumps too. They don't have to be on a log that's laying down. And yeah, they just keep going, man. These guys help clean our forest floors. Look at these guys with their wrinkly little caps and their little frilly margin. Sweeties. Yeah. These are the earthy powder caps. These are Cystoderma amianthanum. So cystoderma means blistered skin. This one's a little bit wet, so glistening. Because it's just, it rained a little bit last night, and some of them are still on the moist side. But yeah, first off, I have not found any lab reports on these guys. But we can talk about other aspects about them. They got a white spore print. They're saprobic, so they're chowing down on wood debris that's underneath this moss here. So yeah, they're not mycorrhizal, even though we're surrounded by the trees. These guys are chewing down on the wood that's under here and stuff like that, because there's all kinds. Like something like this would land, and then, you know, eventually over a year, this moss will completely cover that. So that's what these guys are chewing down on. Yeah, so original naming got thrown into the Agaricus genus, surprise, surprise, by Giovanni Antonio Scapoli. So, yeah, so guess where he's from? Italia. Yeah, so it was named Agaricus amianthamus. And then about, I don't know, I guess it was about 120 years later, I think it was, along comes, he's a Swiss mycologist, and his name was, his last name was Feuillade. Can't remember his first name for some reason. But anyways, he threw it into the Cystodermis genus, which means, and Cystodermis means blistered skin. And amianthum means pure. And it's apparently referring to the purest form of asbestos fiber that you can find. I don't know. It was kind of a bizarre kind of comparison, but oh yeah, here's another beauty over here. So Mr. Feuillade put it in the genus that it's known as today, and gave it its name, amianthanum. And yeah, it's just... Right, well, let's pull one up and take a look at it, because it's got a very interesting stipe. I'm just trying to hold the camera and kneel and elbow at the same time here, so apologies if I don't get this right. Oh, here we go. Okay, so you can see above where the kind of ring zone is, it's quite smooth and kind of lightly granular, but these, and then it's kind of scaly below that. Yeah, so there is this one parasite that attacks it, and I love the name for this one. It's actually, it's called the Powdery Cap Strangler, Squaminita paradoxa, that's what it is. And it's amazing. It actually grows up through the stipe and displaces this beautiful orangey cap, and it puts out this kind of a violet colored cap. So it's the paradoxa comes from the, you know, the fact that it's got the original stipe, but it's got this different cap on it. So yeah, it completely displaces it. Just absolutely bizarre. But there is a look-alike, well, sort of a look-alike. It's a Phaeolepiota aria, and he's covered in, it looks like he's covered in suede, like a light orangey kind of suede, and it comes all the way up like a sleeve, all the way up to where the ring is. And instead of the ring hanging down like it would be a skirt, like a lot of them do, this one sticks up like this, kind of like a upside down inverted lampshade kind of thing. And then they've got their cap, it looks like it's completely made of leather, of this, like, this colored suede. Just absolutely amazing too. But I haven't found one of those to do a comparison, unfortunately, today. But yeah, wild. You can see it doesn't take much to remove all the little scales. Once you start touching it, they're pretty much toast. So, and the look-alike, the Phaeolepiota, as I say, the aria, it has a rusty brown kind of spore print, whereas these guys have the white too, kind of creamy colored spore print. And yet there is another, a sister. This is Cystoderma phalanx. Yeah, like only 100 yards away from this other Cystoderma, it's sister. So yeah, pretty amazing. So you can see that the difference in the stipe here. This one's kind of granular, and this one's just like the big boot with the kind of scales. So you can see on the amianthanum that the ring is kind of degraded to these kind of granules kind of thing, and they're kind of scaly on the bottom part. And whereas this one, it's retained its ring, and it will all the way through. And you see how this guy looks like he's just kind of coated with a sheet of suede, and then his stipe is exactly the same kind of thing. Whereas these guys have more of a wrinkly, and you can see the striations underneath too, which is kind of the gills that are on the underside. So wow, there's our comparison for the day. So yeah, so this guy's ring kind of stays all the way through. As a matter of fact, I've got an old one here, and you can see his ring's still hanging on. And it's like a big sleeve going up there, like a boot. And they get quite wrinkly, and as they age. Slight differences. As we were walking along, you know, you're smelling the forest, you're smelling the decaying leaves, and you know, the litter on the leaf litter on the forest floor and all of that kind of thing, and it just smells magnificent. And then you get to one little area, like where I'm standing right now, and it gets this really sweet smell, like something's blooming. But it's November. Nothing's blooming. So there's only a couple of things that could be making that kind of scent, that aroma. And the Tricholomataceae family would be one of them. Now, I know the smell of the Matsutake, the Tricholoma marillianum, and this is not that smell. That one's kind of cinnamony heart and kind of musty kind of smell. This is sweet, like there's something blooming. So I have a stinking hunch we might be finding some wood bluets, and that is my major hope, because their mycelium can let off that beautiful aroma. Alright, well, I'm going to do some searching, and I'll get back to you as soon as I find them, if I find them. And well, wouldn't you know it, looky here, we've got some wood bluets. This is a Colibia nuda. Yeah. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at that beautiful lilac. I really hope the camera's picking this up. It's beautiful, and you can see that they're going to have that lilac-y kind of mycelium down at the base of the stipe there. And, well, you know, just smelling the mushroom itself, you don't smell that. Well, a little bit, hints of it. But I think it mostly comes from the mycelium. This is a prime specimen, and yeah, these are a choice edible. However, bugs like them too, so you got to get them when they're young like this one, and not maybe quite as done as, say, this guy right here. You know, there's a couple of them there, a little bit bigger, and they can get quite big, honestly. But yeah, just awesome. So a little bit of background on these guys. 1770-ish. We got Jean-Baptiste Francois Pierre Bouliard once again. Yeah, they called him Pete on the softball team. But yeah, he put it into the Agaricus genus, surprise, surprise, and called it Agaricus nudus. And the name nudus actually comes from the comparison to the violet web court. And the nude part is the fact that these guys do not have the little bit of webbing going around the margin of their cap, the cortina. And so, and also the cap is also smooth and not lumpy like the Cortinarius violaceus. So that's where the nuda came from. But wow, look at these guys, look at the color of them. So anyways, about 50 years later, Samuel Frederick Gray, and you probably remember me talking about him. We talked about his book when we were talking about the R. scalpium naming the ear pick, if you remember me talking about that. He wrote that book, The Natural Arrangement of British Plants, whereas they called fungi cryptogamic plants, basically, in those days. And so, yeah, so anyways, old Freddy there Samuel Fred, he threw it into the Cortinarius genus and called it Cortinarius nudus, and which was just really, really kind of weird that he would do that after it was already explained that the nude came from being smooth. So about another 50 years later, come 1870, along comes Paul Kummer, and he's a German mycologist, and he put it into the Tricholoma genus, and they stayed in the Tricholomataceae family. So that was neat, but weirdly enough, in the same year, it got renamed again. Like, didn't anybody have email back then? But yeah, so along comes Mordecai Cook, old Morty Cook there, and he threw it into the Lepista genus. Yeah, and then, oh God, let's go to circa 1970, and along comes Al Smith and, what was the other guy's name? Oh, Howie Bigelow. I'm just a Bigelow. So they put it into the Clitosobe genus, and in 2015 they did a bunch of testing, DNA sequencing, and they found that the Colibia and the Lepista were very, very closely related to the Clitosobe. But in 2023, it finally got its name, Colibia nuda. So that's its official binomial name. Now, are these guys edible? You darn tootin' they are. And they're delicious. I've had them a few times now, and very great. You can do them, mix them in an omelet. You can just fry them, saute them with onions and butter, and you can throw them in you can throw them in stews and soups, and you can preserve them. You can dry them. There's all kinds of things that you can do with them. And they're full of protein, they're full of fiber, and they're low in sugars and fats, which is great. But they do have the good sugars, you know, your polysaccharides and things like that. But these guys, since they have the polysaccharides, of course they're anti-tumor. And they're also antimicrobial and antioxidant. Now, if you remember me talking about the beta-glucans, those guys actually help regulate our immune system. And they're just absolutely amazing. But I really, other than how delicious these guys are, and they have a wonderful, wonderful flavor, mushroom flavor, and it's even a little bit more stronger than what the store-bought mushrooms are and some of the other ones. But yeah, it's just great. These guys are coming home to go in the frying pan, and yeah, but that's about all I have on these beautiful, beautiful little specimens. And they can range kind of in color too. They can be kind of a pinkish to more of a purpley, but kind of a bluey. But these are kind of like almost like a royal blue or something like that. I don't know. It's just awesome. And you can see that just like the Colibia biopsis paranata, they've got this kind of mass of mycelium at the bottom, and they make this little mat. And there's another thing that you can do with these guys too. If you find, you know, you're going to keep your younger ones like these two here, but if you find some older ones, you can throw them in a blender, throw some water in them and a little bit of sugar so they have some nutrients. Make a slurry out of them, and you can take them out into the bush and you can spray it out in the leaf litter and all the stuff underneath it, and they really take to it very well. They've been cultivating them in Malaysia for a long time. Apparently when they cultivate them, they're normally in like a closed environment. They don't have quite as much flavor as what's out in the wild. So that's pretty wild. Awesome. So happy to have these buttes going in my basket. All right. Well, that brings another journey to a close. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, please hit the like and subscribe button. And we'll see you in one of the next videos. Take care now.